Doctors called my parents. They never came. Instead, my sister tagged me in a photo. Family day without the drama. I said nothing. Days later, still weak and hooked to machines, I saw 74 missed calls, and a text from Dad. "We need you. Answer immediately." Without thinking twice, I had a feeling something was wrong for weeks, but I pushed through it like I always did. It wasn't the first time I'd ignored the signs, headaches, dizziness, the occasional tightness in my chest, because the truth is, I didn't think I could afford to slow down. Not when I was helping cover my mom's car payment, not when my sister Melissa was texting me every 2 days asking for just a quick loan, and definitely not when my dad kept pretending like his missed mortgage payment was my responsibility. That's the part people don't get. They see the photo-perfect family posts and think everything's fine. They don't know what it feels like to grow up the only son in a house where you're always the background character. My sisters, Melissa and Paige, could crash a car and somehow still end up getting praise for learning something valuable. I once won a statewide engineering award, and my mom's only response was, "Oh, cool. Did you thank your teacher?" I didn't even want recognition anymore. I just wanted something back. Maybe a sliver of gratitude. But that wasn't in the cards. So I worked. I worked through weekends, I covered bills I shouldn't have, and I told myself it was fine. Until that Monday afternoon. I was at my desk, halfway through prepping a presentation for a major client. I remember standing up to grab a folder from the printer, and then, nothing. Just black. I woke up to beeping. Cold lights. Wires stuck to my chest. A nurse adjusting a drip. It was surreal. Like one of those moments you think only happen in movies. But it was real. And it wasn't a panic attack or dehydration or exhaustion. It was a full-on cardiac event. The doctor said it could have gone worse if I hadn't collapsed right there in the office. Someone called 911 immediately. My coworkers were the reason I was still breathing. The hospital staff was incredible. Kind. Professional. And when they realized I had no one at my bedside hours later, they told me they'd already contacted my emergency contacts, my parents. I waited. I waited for 2 days. Nothing. No texts. No visits. No calls. Then, on the 3rd day, I woke up from a nap and checked my phone, thinking maybe the signal had dropped. There was only one notification. A tag on Instagram. It was from Melissa. A photo of her, Paige, and our parents, all smiles, sitting around a picnic table at the lake. My mom had even made her signature deviled eggs. The caption hit me harder than the collapse ever did. Family day without the drama. And yes, they tagged me. Like I was some inside joke. Like I wasn't half dead in a hospital bed while they were laughing over potato salad. I didn't respond. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Something snapped inside me that day, not in a loud, angry way, but in a quiet, final way. Like a door closing with no intention of ever opening again. I kept recovering. Slowly. The doctors were monitoring my heart and running tests. I barely spoke unless I had to. And still, not a single word from my family. Until 4 days later. I woke up to 74 missed calls. And a text from my father. "We need you. Answer immediately." No apologies. No "how are you?" Just those words. I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't even hesitate. I sat up, still weak, still hooked to machines, and without thinking twice, I dialed back. But not to them. I called someone else. I stared at my father's text for maybe a full minute. "We need you. Answer immediately." 4 days without a word. 74 missed calls, but that's what they led with. Not "how are you?" Not "are you okay?" I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel anything. Just the kind of dead calm that replaced whatever emotion used to kick in during moments like that. Then I remembered a number. A number I hadn't used in a long time. One I had saved under a name I never deleted. Gramps. I hadn't called him in months, not because we weren't close, but because I knew how he felt about the rest of the family, and I had been too embarrassed to admit he was right. Again. But that morning I called him. He picked up on the second ring, like he'd been waiting. Didn't ask how I was. Just asked which hospital. That was it. No hesitation, no questions, no passive-aggressive silence. Just an immediate response, like I mattered. That was something I hadn't felt in years. He showed up 40 minutes later. somehow looked exactly the same. Same old windbreaker. Same watch he'd worn since I was a kid. Same look on his face like nothing surprised him anymore, but he was always ready. He walked in, sat down, looked at me, and said, "So, they finally broke you too, huh?" I didn't even ask how he knew. I just nodded. He stayed with me the entire day. Talked to my nurse. Asked real questions. Quietly paid for one of the tests my insurance rejected without making a thing of it. Then he pulled out a tablet and started helping me sort through the disaster I had left on autopilot. We went through everything. My name was on 5 different loan agreements. 3 credit cards. 2 utilities. A car insurance policy for a vehicle I didn't even drive. It was all so embedded in my routine that I didn't even realize how bad it had gotten. Every time they had a rough patch, I had stepped in. Quietly. Automatically. Because I thought that's what family meant, fixing the holes and not expecting anything back. But the thing is, they expected me to do it. And when I didn't, or couldn't, I became the problem. The drama. I was starting to realize they hadn't just leaned on me. They had leaned through me. I wasn't even a person to them. I was a pressure valve. A cash dispenser. A family failure they could rely on, only as long as I didn't remind them of what they owed me in return. Gramps helped me draft a list. Every account. Every connection. Then we started shutting them off. One by one. I canceled the auto transfer to Melissa's checking account. She used to say she was barely getting by, but she'd flown to Miami 3 times this year and posted about it every time. She could handle her own bills now. Paige's rent deposit? Gone. My mom's car insurance? She could call the provider herself. I removed my card info and changed the password. And the loan I co-signed for Melissa, the one she had conveniently stopped mentioning for months, I flagged it. Filed a fraud report. Not because I was trying to ruin her, but because I never agreed to be her backup plan forever. I was done signing papers for people who wouldn't show up for me on a hospital bed. Gramps didn't say much, but every now and then he'd let out this quiet little humph, like he was both disappointed and unsurprised. He was the only one who had ever told me the truth, that loyalty is only as strong as the people you're loyal to. By the time he left that evening, the calls had doubled. My phone had to be silenced. Mom had left voicemails pretending she had just heard what happened. Paige was texting in all caps like that would make me respond faster. Melissa had gone quiet, which, in her case, meant she was preparing something worse. Then another message came in. From Dad. "This is serious. Call me now. Everything is falling apart." Still no mention of the hospital. Not one word about what happened to me. Just panic, not for me, but because they knew what was coming. The first domino had fallen. They just didn't realize I was the one who pushed it. I was still in the hospital when the fallout started. At first, it was the voicemails. 12, then 24, then so many I stopped checking. I played one on speaker just to see if anything had changed. It was my mom. She said, "I don't know what you're trying to prove, but this isn't the way to do it." That was the tone. Not fear. Not concern. Just frustration that the ATM was broken. Melissa texted next. No words at first, just a screenshot of her checking account. The balance was $2.09. Then she followed it up with, "What the hell is going on? Fix this." I stared at the screen, felt the anger rising for a second, then let it drop. It wasn't new. It was just louder now. Paige tried a different angle. Her text was longer, more emotional. She said she didn't know what drama was happening, and that she loved all of us, and wanted peace. She ended it with, "Please don't punish me for things I didn't do." Which was funny, considering the last time we spoke, she rolled her eyes when I told her I couldn't co-sign another lease. Said I was being difficult. Then ghosted me for 3 months. But it was my dad who finally crossed the line. He showed up at my apartment. Gramps had warned me. He'd seen his car outside earlier, idling. I was still in recovery, not strong enough to walk without assistance, but that didn't stop him from parking outside like he was waiting for a hostage to be released. I didn't respond. Later that day, a text came through. "You're about to destroy everything we built. I hope you understand the damage you're causing." Everything we built. The audacity in that sentence was enough to make me laugh out loud. I read it again just to make sure I hadn't imagined it. No apology. No mention of the hospital. No concern for what had put me there in the first place. Just fear. Fear of losing the leverage they'd had for too long. Then came the post. Melissa uploaded a video. No music. No voice. Just a slow, dramatic walkthrough of my parents' house, completely empty. Not just cleared out kind of empty. Evicted empty. Front door wide open, living room stripped, dining table gone. Even the curtains had been taken down. The caption read, "They took everything." And guess who let them? I watched it once. Then opened my finance app. Pulled up the mortgage. It had defaulted. Again. They'd used the equity to pay off Melissa's credit card debt and fund Paige's online business idea. A candle company or a clothing boutique, I don't remember. It failed within 2 months. None of the money had gone into the mortgage. I had warned them last year, just once, that if they didn't manage it better, I was out. They didn't believe me. So when I walked, the bank moved in. Gramps was there when I found the documents. I didn't say anything at first, just scrolled, showing him the balance, the late fees, the notices I never saw because they had gone straight to my parents' address. He nodded once. Then he made a few calls. One to his lawyer. Another to an old friend in estate planning. Then finally to his accountant, who I hadn't even known existed until that day. What I learned next made everything clear. My family hadn't just leaned on me. They'd been quietly poking around my grandfather too. Especially after he retired. Paige had taken him to brunch twice, something she never did. Melissa brought him a Christmas gift last year for the first time in a decade. Mom hinted during one of their calls that he should start thinking about what's fair. He saw it all coming. Had prepared accordingly. Every asset, every trust, every property he owned, he had already moved it. Not to punish them. To protect it. From them. And now, he moved most of it under a new name. Mine. Not as a gift. Not as a reward. But because I was the only one who hadn't asked for it. I had proven, painfully and clearly, that I could survive without it. That I didn't feel entitled to a cent. And in his words, that made me the only one worthy of it. That night, Melissa showed up at the hospital. She wasn't on the list, so security didn't let her in. But I saw her through the window. She was pacing the lot, phone in hand, clearly talking to someone, probably Paige. She had sunglasses on, even though it was getting dark, like she was preparing for a confrontation that never happened. She left after 15 minutes. I figured that was the end of it. Then a final message came through an hour later. If you don't fix this, I swear to God you'll regret it. No emojis. No hearts. No hashtags. Just that sentence. And it didn't hit the way she thought it would. I didn't feel threatened. Or scared. Or cornered. For the first time, I didn't feel anything. I had stopped trying to be the son, the brother, the fixer. Now, I was just free. It started with a knock at the hospital room door. I assumed it was a nurse. It wasn't. A staff member came in, looking slightly uncomfortable, and said there's a woman downstairs claiming to be your medical proxy. She says she's your sister and needs to speak with your doctor immediately. I stared at her, confused at first. I hadn't listed anyone from my immediate family as an emergency contact. Just my grandfather. I asked who it was. She checked the notes. Paige. I almost laughed. She hadn't texted me in days. Hadn't visited. Hadn't even acknowledged I was in a hospital until I cut off her rent assistance. And now she was trying to speak for me? I told them no one was authorized. The hospital agreed and had security escort her out without letting her anywhere near my room. I thought it was just her being dramatic. I was wrong. A few hours later, Gramps walked in holding a manila envelope. He dropped it on the bed and sat down. Inside were printed screenshots of an email exchange between my parents and a small law firm I'd never heard of. They were looking into legal guardianship. Specifically over me. I read it 3 times just to make sure I understood. They were trying to claim that I was unwell, mentally unstable, erratic, potentially suffering from post-traumatic stress or breakdown, and that my recent financial decisions showed a pattern of emotional volatility. Their goal was clear. If they could get someone, preferably my father, appointed as a temporary conservator, they could freeze the financial reversals I'd already set in motion. Restore access to accounts. Reopen credit. regained control. They were trying to paint me as incompetent. The same people who didn't even check if I was alive 4 days ago. I sat with that for a while. Gramps was calm. He told me this wasn't new to him. Years ago, when my uncle tried to break away from the family, for similar reasons, my parents had floated the idea back then too. It never went anywhere. But now, with real money at stake, they were actually trying. They weren't calling because they cared. They were calling because they were cornered. I went quiet the rest of the day. Not in a sad way, in a focused way. Something in me clicked. I'd spent my whole life hoping they'd wake up, realize how much I gave, maybe even apologize. But they weren't waking up. They were trying to rewrite the story to make me the villain. So I made a list. Every account, every shared asset, every payment I had set up to help over the years. My lawyer, the one Gramps introduced me to, came by that evening with paperwork already in hand. We filed the following morning. A cease and desist to both my sisters and parents, barring them from contacting any of my doctors or attempting to impersonate medical proxies. A fraud watch on every financial institution where I'd ever had shared access with any family member. A restraining barrier on property transfers tied to my name. If anyone tried to sell or move an asset I had co-signed, it would trigger a legal freeze. I also had my HR department move all direct deposits to a new bank, one they didn't know existed, under a holding trust created by my grandfather's estate advisor. It was the first time in my life that I felt secure. Then the next hit came. Paige posted a video. Her makeup was smudged, the lighting was terrible, and the camera shook just enough to look raw. It started with her sniffling, and ended with her looking straight into the lens. She didn't say my name, but she said enough. There's someone in our family who's going through something dark. We're trying to help him, but he's lashing out and hurting people. We don't want to lose him. But we also can't keep letting him destroy everything we've built. Everything we've built. It was that same phrase again. Like I had just wandered into their empire and flipped the lights off. The video took off fast. Her friends started commenting. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years sent cryptic texts. Even one of my old coworkers reached out asking if everything was okay. Melissa reposted it with a heart emoji and the words, "We're all praying for peace. Peace." After they tried to take control of my life. My money. My health. They weren't praying for peace. They were praying I'd fold. But I didn't. Instead, I posted something of my own. Just a single photo. Me, sitting up in the hospital bed, next to my grandfather. Nothing dramatic. No long caption. Just, sometimes silence isn't weakness. It's restraint. No hashtags. No tags. No drama. But I knew it would get back to them. And it did. 2 hours later, Melissa called. I didn't answer. She called again. Then Paige. Then my mom. All missed calls. Then came a final text from my father. We didn't want it to come to this. You're forcing us to do things we never wanted to do. They still didn't get it. They still thought they were in charge. But they had no idea what was coming next. The letter came 2 days later. Hand-delivered to the hospital, sealed in a crisp white envelope. I opened it thinking maybe, they were reaching out with something human. Instead, it was legal. A notice of intent to pursue emergency conservatorship over me. I read it twice before I said anything. They were claiming I was mentally unfit to handle my own finances. That my recent, erratic behavior, meaning the act of cutting them off, was proof that I was spiraling. The letter cited emotional distress, inability to meet obligations, and concerns from immediate family about my mental stability following a cardiac event. They were trying to take everything. Officially. I called my lawyer right away. He wasn't shocked. Said this wasn't rare in messy families, especially when someone breaks the cycle of dependence. He told me they were hoping to file an emergency petition before I could appear in court. If they timed it right, and I missed the window to respond, a judge could temporarily grant it. What they didn't know was that Gramps and his legal team had already moved. We filed a preemptive response with notarized statements from my doctors confirming I was mentally stable and in full command of my decision-making. We submitted proof of income, communication logs, and a letter from my employer stating I'd voluntarily taken time off and was still actively employed. The hearing was cancelled before it even made it onto the court docket. They had nothing. Their lawyer withdrew quietly. Probably realized he'd been fed a family sob story and didn't want the professional blowback. But that didn't stop the smear campaign. I started getting weird texts from old acquaintances. A girl I dated years ago messaged me, saying she was sorry to hear I was struggling. A former coworker emailed asking if I needed a hand getting back on my feet. That's when I realized they were trying something else now, shifting the narrative. Turning my hospitalization into a breakdown. Painting my silence as proof that I'd gone off the deep end. Framing themselves as the only ones trying to help. And it might have worked, if not for how sloppily they went about it. Melissa couldn't keep her mouth shut. Paige couldn't resist the attention. She posted another video. This time, full production. Emotional lighting, piano music in the background, soft filter. She talked about how mental illness doesn't always look how you think. How some wounds are invisible. And how she just wanted her brother back. She never said my name. But she didn't have to. Her followers picked it up instantly. The comment section was full of sympathy. Messages like "You're so strong, praying for your family, he's lucky to have you." Then one comment changed everything. Someone posted a screenshot of Melissa's old caption, "Family Day without the drama," with a side-by-side of Paige's crying video. The caption said, "So where was all this concern when he was actually in the hospital?" It exploded. Comments flipped. Sympathy turned into outrage. People started digging into Melissa's past posts, into Paige's business accounts, into my dad's old public-facing job. What they found wasn't pretty. Melissa had tagged me in that Family Day post while I was in the ICU. Paige had tweeted 2 years ago about moochers who fake trauma. My mom had posted a birthday dinner photo just one day after the doctors had contacted her about my collapse. It all resurfaced. Jen, an old high school friend I hadn't seen in years, reached out. Said she was working in media now. She remembered how things were with my family back then, how off it always seemed, even when we were teenagers. She said the internet would only let the lies go so far. And it didn't. People started asking real questions. Paige's little online boutique? Review bombed. Customers demanding refunds. Influencers quietly dropping her from collabs. Melissa's sponsorships vanished within days. A brand she'd worked with unfollowed her after tagging her in an apology post. Even my dad's workplace got pulled in. One of his clients had seen the viral threads and brought it up during a meeting. He got defensive. HR was notified. By the end of the week, he was placed on leave. Then they let him go entirely. Everything they'd built on the backs of lies and entitlement was crumbling in front of them. That's when my mom finally broke her silence. She sent a single text. "Please. Can we talk?" No guilt trip. No defense. Just those 5 words. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't feel satisfaction. Not really. What I felt was distance. Like the words came from someone I used to know in a life that no longer existed. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened my notes app. Started listing out the things I still needed to cut, cancel, and close. They had finally gone too far. Not just with me, but with the story they were trying to sell to everyone else. And they still didn't understand the one truth they never bothered to consider. I wasn't angry. I was just done. I thought they'd give up after the conservatorship attempt failed. After the public backlash. After losing jobs, sponsors, and the last bits of credibility they had. But I should have known better. Selfish people don't surrender. They adapt. I had just been discharged from the hospital. Still weak, but able to walk on my own. Gramps picked me up, handed me a drink, and told me we were heading to his place for a few days. I was fine with that. I didn't want to go back to my apartment. It still felt too close to them. We were halfway to his house when my phone buzzed. It was from an unknown number. "You should really come by the house. We need to talk. Urgently." It was Paige. I deleted it without replying. Then, 2 hours later, Jen called me. Her voice was sharp, urgent. She told me to check Facebook. They had posted something. Melissa, Paige, my mom, all standing in front of the old house. Behind them, a U-Haul truck. My dad, off to the side, holding a box. They looked devastated. Fake tears. Dirty sweatshirts. The caption was written by Melissa. "Losing everything hurts. Especially when it's because your own blood turned on you. But we forgive him. He's still our brother." We just want him to come home. Before it's too late. The comments were a war zone. Half were strangers offering support. The other half were people calling them out. I wouldn't have even cared until I saw the last picture in the post. A framed childhood photo of me, held in Paige's hands. Captioned underneath, "We're keeping a room ready. Family is forever." I didn't know whether to be angry or just disturbed. It felt like an emotional ransom. A digital performance meant to make me look like the villain, while positioning themselves as victims willing to welcome me back. But the most unexpected part came the next day. I received a letter in the mail from the county clerk's office. Inside was a handwritten will. Not from my grandfather. From my father. A new one. It had been drafted the week after their failed conservatorship stunt. It outlined his assets, which, ironically, were now very few, and stated that in the event of his passing, everything would go to the remaining family members who maintained unity. And then, in shaky handwriting, "Colton is disinherited until he returns to this family and reconciles." I stared at the paper for a long time. Then I laughed. Not because I wanted anything from him, I never did, but because the final play, the last move, was exactly what it had always been, a trap. One final attempt to pull me back into the system they built. The message was clear: fall back in line, or be erased. But they didn't realize something important. I wanted to be erased. So I had my lawyer send a letter in return. It included a legal waiver of any claim to the estate, a permanent no-contact notice, and a signed document removing them as emergency contacts or next of kin for any medical or legal matter related to me. It was simple. Direct. Final. They tried to bait me with guilt, with social media, with money, and finally with legacy. I chose peace instead. Gramps and I moved out of state 2 weeks later. He said he wanted to see the mountains again. We bought a small cabin just outside a quiet town. I took a remote job, cut my hours, started reading again. Breathing again. Every so often, someone from the past tries to reach out. A cousin. An old neighbor. Someone wondering what really happened. I never explain. Because people like Melissa, Paige, and my parents, they're good at telling stories. Stories where they're always the ones hurt, always the ones betrayed, always the ones left behind by someone cruel and troubled. Let them have their story. I have the truth. And peace? Peace is better than being loved by people who only love you when you're useful.